Welcome to the Productivity Podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by an old friend, Mark Thomas, who's now VP of Customer Success at Rotageek. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Simon. How are you?
Yeah, good. We were just talking, weren't we, offline about how long it was since we've actually seen each other, and hopefully we'll change that soon and meet up in a couple of months.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we recorded with Oliver Banks a webinar on the foundations to recruit a flexible workforce on the 18th of February, and hopefully we'll have a link in the show notes so people can watch that. And we're just in this episode going to reflect on some of the things we talked about. I've kind of been thinking about it since, and it's made me question a few things. Before we get into the detail, it'd be good to find out about you, Mark. Just give us a bit of a career background of how you got into workforce management, some of the things you've done.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks. Yeah. So I start at the end. I'm now VP of Customer Success at Rotageek, and I have full responsibility and ownership for pretty much everything post-sale. So that includes the implementation, the ongoing success of our customers, our support offering, and working with the product and sales team to make sure that keeps going. Prior to that, I had a couple of big chunks of time. I was leading the customer success team for the world's largest workforce management company, and we all know who they are. Prior to that, I was with another startup, which was Workplace Systems. Back in the day, they've been swallowed up now by the Americans, and I spent a lot of time there in solution design, product, and pre-sales. And prior to that, pretty much a lifetime in hospitality and retail. So still got the scars of trying to do schedules on the back of postage stamps and manage availability through little black books stuck under the till. So yeah, it's a great field. Thoroughly enjoying it. Being in the field now for nearly 20 years.
Excellent, and it's evolved in that time, hasn't it? As all software has, from big on-premise, hundreds of days to deploy and configure, through to much easier, more accessible software as a solution. Deployments that make it quicker to get your return on investment, quicker to get your deployment done, and clearly you keep on track of all the software enhancements and changes that come through as your technology moves on.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If I think the first implementation I worked on, I won't say who it was, but it took 18 months to get stood up, and now at Rotageek we're getting customers live, scheduling time and attendance in as little as 6 weeks. It's an absolutely remarkable change. And of course, the whole product strategy, here at Rotageek, we are incredibly agile. So we are updating almost daily, zero downtime. Whereas I'm sure you remember, your system will be offline for the next 2 days while we put in the bug fix. And now it's just this constant stream of new information, and it's making sure our customers are staying up to date with that and making sure they're using the best of it.
Because it brings different challenges, doesn't it? Then of not big batch releases with notes if there's constant change. But we'll come back to some of the work you're doing at Rotageek before we close. But let's just turn our minds to the kind of flexible workforce debate that we're having. The one thing, or one of the things I came away from the conversation was that we probably didn't touch on, was just the word flexibility. I think. Yeah. Historically, for a colleague, so if we put ourselves in the shoes of a colleague, let's say on the shop floor in one of the many supermarkets that we all use, if the manager comes up and says, I want you to be more flexible, I'd probably start to think, oh, he wants me to be available every day, maybe work a lot later, maybe work on weekends if I didn't. So it's this whole 24/7 always available that starts to flash through your mind, where actually, we both see lots of schedules in our work across a year. I don't think it's as dramatic as that. Does that make sense? Does that resonate?
Yeah, I think I hear where you're coming from. The work's still there. The work still needs to be done. What we've got is we've got a lot better at predicting when that work's going to be, and now we understand that it's not a 9 to 5. That replen isn't always 10:30 till 12:30. Sometimes it's 9. It's an hour move. There's that shift in it, and it's just asking the colleagues, our team members, our staff, to just to be able to alter slightly what their work patterns are. And I think we put too much emphasis into it, as you said, and it comes across as being almost a daunting task, and it isn't. It's a lot of the time it's just small increments.
Yeah, because there's some work, like you say, that you can move. So there's a choice to when you put stock out in the day or don't, as it may be, or overnight even.
Yeah.
But clearly, anything that's customer related, you can't say to the customer, "Oh, sorry, you weren't due to come until 10:30." Yeah, come back in half an hour because we're not staffed up to it. So yeah, I think there's been a real evolution, maybe even revolution, in people understanding the work content. Clearly, some of the stuff we go out and measure for people help them to understand. Massively impacted by Corona, massively impacted then by the rise in, depending on your sector, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, that fulfill from store. So again, the demands are changing. But I think people are a lot smarter at, ultimately in any store, whether you're open 9 till 5, 8 till 8, 24/7, there's a rump of work that needs to be done. And there's a rump of people to do that work. So it's much more marginal now, I think, than these wholesale changes. The people only working Monday to Friday, yeah, still some, and you're probably going to need some, but much more expansive across 7 days of the week. But rather than wholesale change, it's an hour either side, or actually working a morning on a different day of the week, rather than this be available any time of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And in with that word flexibility that we have to look at, the modern workforce, our colleagues want more flexibility. They, the old days of working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, don't suit the modern workforce. They want Monday morning off. So they're quite happy to give up Sunday afternoon to pick that back up and be able to have that. It's not the work-life balance, is it? I think that's becoming a bit jaded. It's that kind of work-life blend. So when we talk flexibility, we have to talk about it from both aspects. It's not flexibility just to to benefit the business. It's flexibility to make ourselves more attractive employers. More of aiming for that sort of employer of choice piece. So it's being flexible on our expectation rather than just expecting all of it to come from the team.
Yeah, and on the webinar, we talked about all those working across store opportunities, shift swap, shift bid, all the things that tend to be in the mobile apps now for workforce management, as well as actually if you are less flexible than somebody else as an individual, that may mean that you need to be trained to do some different tasks in the store. So back to multi-skilling, I can't change my hours because of healthcare commitments, work commitments, elderly parent commitments, whatever it might be. And I think employees again appreciate that now more than ever. But what that might mean for that individual is, well, we don't actually need you on the tills anymore, so we need to train you to do some specialist counter work, to work in the cash office, to do more replen. So there's different ways to crack the problem.
Yeah, absolutely, and you see it as well as I do. That we go into a retailer, and they still, there's a few retailers out there. They still have a large portion of their workforce that only does one job. Yet they can't get the cover when they need it to do some of the smaller roles. Or in fact, cashiers are always classic, aren't they? I've got 9 cashiers available today, but I've only got 6 tills. What do I do with the other 3? I've got a contractual fulfillment. And if we're making the effort to cross-train them, and we know cross-trained staff stay longer, they're more engaged, they see more of the business, and they get to see the consequence of the work they're doing. So it's flexibility is a broad brush.
Yep, and it's interesting as well. Again, if you think across our UK supermarkets, there's probably 2, maybe even only 1 now that is still operating a butcher's counter, a deli counter, a bakery with a proper baker in there. So again, that workforce has become de-skilled because we don't need a specialist role, butcher, baker, fishmonger, etc. So there's more opportunity to move across the store and potentially do the same hours or with less flex if you're unable to.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that.
So we talk a lot about retail because that's what we're brought up on. That's where we love being and walking around stores with people and just talking. It's the bit that gets out of bed. But if we take ourselves out of retail, can you think of kind of any other environments where there's good examples of how they've really used flexibility, or historically it's just been in the DNA of how that operation or organisation works?
Yeah, so I think we were talking offline before we started, and I think we both sort of flagged up that healthcare is a great example, especially when we're looking at the hospitals where we have high degrees of skill, but massively fluctuating demand, multiple fluctuating requirements for people to be on duty, and our healthcare teams have really embraced this, and they have done for many years with their on-call rosters, with their shift patterns that are more that are built, ideally to suit the requirements of the business. And their ability to be able to deploy people very, very quickly by using these bank on call rosters. I think it's something we've certainly seen in the US in retail over there, that they have that it's this building idea of the on-call shift. Yet to see it very much in the UK, and I think that could have quite an impact.
Yeah, and I think that there's examples in the fire service as well where they've got kind of retained, which pretty much plays to the on-call piece. But also, again, they really struggle, as do all the kind of core emergency services, with demand. How can you predict how many fires you're going to get? Well, you can look back at history, but is that a good indication of the future in that example? Because it's not relative to an event or a date or a bank holiday. It's relative to, well, random occurring events in some instances. So, yeah, I think their base is set up. Maybe that means that potentially at times they're overstaffed, but that's a consequence of unpredictable or volatile demand.
That's right, and it's and I think a lot of the time you've got to ask yourself that hard. You got to ask yourself those hard questions. What is the service level that we aspire to? And can I create a schedule that's going to guarantee me that service level? I mean, if we look at, again, we dip back into retail, we have the very high end of the market, the Hermes shop at Charles de Gaulle Airport that does, zero business for 6 hours during the day and then 25,000 euros in 15 minutes. You still have to stuff it. If there's no one there to do the service, you don't make a sale. If we look at the big box supermarket with its slightly more predictable demand, but we watch the replenishment software guaranteeing that the bananas never run out. Well, they won't run out as long as you've got somebody there to refill them, and that's that's a cost of doing business.
Yeah, and it takes us back to the kind of counter proposition in those supermarkets as well. If it takes you an hour in the morning to set up the fish counter with the ice and an hour to clear down, and then you sell little fish, but you need the fishmonger to be stood there all day, there's a big overhead and cost of doing business and potentially big waste implications as well.
Yeah. But in the same respect, if that's your brand and that's the service level that you aspire to, you build that into your business model.
Yeah, that's just the cost of doing business, right? Yeah, absolutely. So those are kind of the things that were on my mind, which it's been good to play out and discuss. So kind of defining the flexibility word or making it less scary for colleagues, thinking outside of retail, and we've not even touched on kind of manufacturing supply chain where they've historically worked on kind of maybe 2 or 3 shift patterns. So a shift comes on, a shift goes off, and there's an overlap in the middle, completely different way of working, and annualized hours, which really isn't a particular thing in retail. So where you'll give me, 2,000 hours a year and call them off as and when is much more prevalent. So maybe we see some of that moving forward.
Yeah, certainly. We also, I'm starting to see the resurgence of the annualized hours. I'm probably old enough to remember back into the mists of the 80s when annualized hours started to gain popularity, and it's back. We're starting to see retailers. We're working with a hospitality company in the UK now, whose entire staff base is on annualized hours, because that allows them to trade throughout the year with staff earning a guaranteed sum of money, but in the down times they're doing 20 hours a week, and their up times they're doing 45, 50. Central Europe, of course, France particularly, very hot on annualized hours, and they call it modulation in France, but it's quite prevalent now. Again, it's finding a software provider that can can handle that, and because there's a level of complexity in annualized hours that you well know, the shifting value of a day as the hours are consumed or not, as the case may be, and understanding that you get your annualized hours wrong, and the last 2 months of the year are all at premium pay because everybody's on overtime because you've burnt your hours. And it's important, to make sure that you've got a software provider that can support you and expose that data to you as it's happening.
Yeah, I think that's the bit that scares retailers, isn't it? I've gone too early and used all the hours. What do I do? Or I enter the last month of the year and people physically can't work the hours they've got left to use, but I've still got to pay them for it.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a piece that we've done a lot of work on around the annualized hours piece, and of course within that annualized hours piece, we have the whole sort of the minimum wage, the working time regulations that are also in and of themselves are actually an annualized sum. And again, it's something that Rotageek that we're embracing with and working hard towards making sure that we can support our customers with that, and being able to predict where those hours are going to be needed as well is absolutely key. And our forecasting and auto scheduling algorithms are constantly being tweaked with each change in legislation, and coming out of COVID, what's post COVID looking like? What are we going to do with 2 years of data that really doesn't really have a great deal of meaning to our businesses going forward?
So it's tricky.
It's tricky, it's challenging, but it's fun though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's what keeps the grey matter working, isn't it? It's solving problems. That's some of the thing I think we all enjoy in this industry. It's about the system's surface problems to a degree because it shows you how closely or not you match or what data gaps you've got, and then you've got to solve that problem. So what other things are you guys at Rotageek looking at the moment? Where's the research and development effort going?
So we're continuing to work very, very hard on our auto scheduling algorithms, and especially we talk about the Gen Zs and the modern workforce and making sure that our algorithms and our scheduling rules are robust enough to be able to program in and monitor that. How many evenings a week are we working? How many weekends? How many Sundays throughout a given period, and actually being able to lay down a schedule. In some cases, we have customers that want to lay down a schedule for the next 52 weeks and then trim it and constantly train that out sort of 4, 5, 6 weeks ahead to make sure that it's equitable, I think is the word, rather than fair. That everybody's being treated in the same way and the right people are at the right place. And we're making sure they've got the right attitude because they want to, because we're not breaking our promises to our staff by dragging them in and constantly changing their schedules and giving people an idea of some level of permanence in what is a very rapidly shifting environment. And again, working with our forecasting. So that's really where we're spending our time. It's, Rotageek is a scheduling platform first. We're all about making sure that we have the right schedule that suits the shape the business needs to be in going forward. So that's where we spend our time.
So people very, very busy on all those kind of smart techie things, but at the front end, it should make users' lives easier. It should make the plan that you're scheduling against, so the shape of demand and the demand more accurate, which ultimately can only be a benefit for the kind of tight utilization of that resource from a process point of view and then a customer service point of view.
Absolutely. And, the software has to be a pleasure to use at the front end. When our colleagues are picking their phone up to look at the app, to interact with the software, that it's as simple can be. It requires the minimum amount of training. I want to be able to interact with my workforce management tool the same way as I do with Amazon. I don't want an instruction book. I want it to do it instinctively, and I want it to do it simply. So it's hiding all of that complexity, and it's behind what is really a very simple user interface.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And just to close then, Mark, if people want to find out more or have a chat with you about Rotageek, where's the best place for them to find you?
Rotageek.com. Look, choose us up on the web. have a look at our website. As you know, my name is Mark Thomas. You'll find my email address floating around there, and just reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to chat, talk it through with you, and see what we can do to help.
Brilliant. Appreciate your time, Mark. Just reflecting on the webinar that we did, and I say we'll put the link to the YouTube broadcast in the notes so people can get into the detail, and hopefully it kind of sparks some conversation or thought internally for them to think about flexibility, how they're deploying, and kind of really take advantage of those opportunities, as we're all facing a world where cost is increasing of the things we buy and the colleagues we employ.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much, Simon. Thanks for the opportunity to have a chat, and I look forward to catching up with you in a couple of months' time, I have.
Yep, face to face. Catch you soon.
Yeah. Take care. Thanks, Simon. Bye-bye.